Cloud. All right, so welcome to another episode of a Frugal Athlete podcast. Today we got two very special guests, two very close friends that came up together, and they're both doing great things in their respective spaces. So we got Zach Pfeffer and Russell Canouse. How you guys doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on, Moby.
Doing good, man. Thank you so much.
Most definitely. So let's take it back. So I was playing for Philadelphia at the time, and they always kept talking about these two young kids that, were both from the same area, both doing amazing things at their level. And then next thing you know, they're both in Germany. So, I don't want to tell you guys this whole story, but if you guys can give a brief intro. I know, Zach, you've been on the podcast before, but Russell, we've talked quite a bit, but this is your first time. So introduce yourselves for the audience that may not know who you guys are.
Go ahead, Zach.
Cool. I'll kick us off. Yeah. So Zach Pfeffer was formerly a 6-year professional soccer player in Major League Soccer. Spent most of my career with the Philadelphia Union. A decent amount of time of that was with Moby, and spent a year playing in Germany while on loan from the Union in 2013 with TSG 1899 Hoffenheim of the Bundesliga. And we'll talk about it more, but I was there with Russ for a good period of time. And then finished out my career in 2016 with the Colorado Rapids out in Denver. And at the ripe old age of 22, decided it was time to hang up my boots and retire and move on to the next chapter. So following the playing career in MLS, I went back to Temple University to finish off my undergraduate degree in finance. Did a couple of internships, did an internship at Goldman in the investment banking division, covering the global industrial space. Went back full time, was there for about 16 months or so. And recently in October of last year, ventured into the private equity world with Brightstar Capital Partners. So that's where I'm at right now.
Amazing.
How old are you, Zach?
I'm 26 now.
26. I'll be turning 26 this year too. Russell Canouse here. I'm originally from Lancaster, PA. Zach and I grew up 45 minutes from each other, but I am currently playing for DC United in Major League Soccer. But I was in Germany at 15 years old, playing for TSG Hoffenheim, as Zach said, and I spent 6.5 years in Germany. 5.5 of the years were at Hoffenheim in the academy, reserve team, and then first team. And then I signed my first pro deal, and then I was put on loan to Bochum in the second Bundesliga. Spent a year there, and then when I turned 22, that's when I decided to make the move back to Major League Soccer. So I'm 25, turning 26 this year. I've been with DC United for 3.5 years now. So.
No, it's amazing. And, if you're listening, these are two young gentlemen that are, mature beyond their years. I know Zach's a professional when he says finance, and and Russell, leaving your, Lancaster at the age of 15, that's no small feat. So can you guys both talk about, being young professionals? Zach, you went pro at 16. Russell, you moved overseas at 15. So talk about that dynamic. And, a lot of athletes, specifically soccer players, are, going pro at a younger ages. What does it take to make it to that next level at that age?
Russ, why don't you kick us off this time?
Yeah. I think there was obviously lots of sacrifice that went into it. I always talk about, obviously soccer is growing within this country, but every kid's path to first team or professional level is different. Obviously the path signing here within the US and moving abroad is possible now. Signing abroad and, making it overseas is also, a pathway to success. But for me, it was a lot of sacrifice. It was difficult. Zach and I we spent some time in Florida when we were 14 years old with the U17 US national team down at the IMG Academy.
You guys were at residency too.
Yeah.
Right?
You spent time there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, for me personally, that was a warm up for then moving to Germany. Spent about a year away from my family. I was 6 months, I believe, at high school, and then I left to go to the residency program. So I always say that was kind of a warm up for Germany and kind of got me used to being away from family. But it takes a lot of sacrifice. It made me mature a lot faster. Trying to figure out things in a new country, new language for me personally was not always easy, but I think being able to adapt in those situations really helped me succeed and follow the pathway.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, look, from my end, obviously, I signed with the union as the first homegrown right before my 16th birthday, and kind of similar to Russ, there's a lot of sacrifice involved. There's a lot of well thought out decisions that need to be made at such a young age. And I come from very, as does Russell, very well educated family. Everyone went to school, has higher degrees, and so education was always extremely important to our family. And so a big decision, of course, was, as parents, my parents said, do we let Zach turn professional and potentially have this unorthodox academic path throughout high school, through college? But ultimately, at such a young age, and having really since I was 3 years old dreamed of playing professionally, it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, and honestly, simply that my parents couldn't say no to as well. So obviously joining the union at a young age, it's funny because if I look back at pictures, then I was maybe 5'8", 130 pounds soaking wet. So it looked like I was 12 years old. And I think just having the experience of getting thrust into the professional world, into a man's world at such a young age, paid huge dividends for me, really allowed me to grow up, to mature, to become much more independent. And then, you fast forward to living over in Germany with Russ and the two of us being on our own at such a young age, being, thrown into a new culture, learning a new language. And then after I came back from Germany, moved out into my own apartment in Philly. So all of those things, outside of the soccer field, I think people don't necessarily realize are pretty difficult, especially at a young age. But I really had some amazing experiences. And I know for me personally has kind of made me who I am today and helped me get to where I am now.
No, most definitely. I always tell people, like, I wouldn't change residency for anything, talk about, leaving at a young age, and people was like, well, I wouldn't do that for my kid, but you grow in so many ways that you can't even imagine. So I want you guys to talk about that season where you guys spent together. Obviously you guys played against each other growing up, played with each other growing up, youth national teams, but a year in Germany together. What was that like? How did you guys help each other? And, how important was it to have like someone familiar, with you as you guys are trying to reach your professional goals?
Yeah.
It was, going back to even further, like Zach and I, when did we get to know each other, Zach? Probably like 10, 11 years old, like maybe
Playing
11
ODP,
years
the
old,
state
trying
team.
ODP for Pennsylvania state team.
Yep.
That was, and then you go through the regional team, national team. So we always were really close. Like I remember going up, spending time at your cabin and, training in the basement and doing all those things. Right. It was awesome. And then obviously it was almost like, it felt like it was supposed to happen that way, where Zach was on Philadelphia Union. They started to develop a relationship with the clubs. Hoffenheim and Union started to develop a relationship. And obviously Zach was an awesome talent, young player that was interested for Hoffenheim to bring over. And it worked out. I was there, obviously moving my way a different route, but similar. We were at the similar stages in our career. And it was awesome being able to kind of rekindle what we had when we were younger, and then being in Germany together. We ended up, did we start out, we got a apartment together, right? But did you live in the academy building?
Yeah, for the first
time, right?
First couple of months, I was in the academy, and then we got an apartment.
So at Hoffenheim, they have like a 12 to 14 room, like academy building, fields outside, chefs, someone to watch over, like all the offices are there, gym down there. So we had our rooms there on site for the first couple of months. I stayed there longer. But once Zach came over and he kind of felt comfortable, then we got our apartment in a place called Sinsheim. Hoffenheim actually is a village of like, there's more cows than people there. It's probably has 50 people population there. And it takes you like 3 minutes to drive through the village of Hoffenheim. But we got an apartment in Sinsheim, and it was awesome being able to kind of experience the culture together. I remember dragging up groceries up the hill, like, because we didn't have our car yet. It was great because we had the same mindset the whole time. We were there to support each other. We were best friends along on the journey too, which made it that more amazing.
Yeah, I won't be too repetitive. Just to echo the same thing. I think it's funny when you look at us coming together at 10, 11 years old, playing on the state team for ODP, playing against each other at the club level. But I think also too, what was interesting is both Russell and myself were one of maybe 5 or 6 guys in our age group where we were in the 1995 age group for the national team, really one of maybe 5 or 6 guys that went to almost every single camp from the U14 age all the way up to essentially the U20, U23 national team. So not only did we play ODP together, play against each other at the club level, live together in Germany, but we also had an opportunity to represent the country together for 6, 7 years or whatever it was. So it was pretty special. But I mean, living over in Germany, the only thing I guess that I would add that Russell didn't is he obviously was there much longer than I was and was there before me. So from my perspective, going over there was a huge help to have him, and he knew the ropes, he knew the language, he knew kind of just the culture at Hoffenheim at the club itself. And so that made my transition multiples easier versus what it otherwise probably would have been.
And you guys mentioned both you guys are, come from well-educated backgrounds. Both your parents are, big on education. So describe the school situation, because I know, Zach, when you were in Philly, you were doing the homeschool or actually going to school after practice and stuff like that. Russell, I'm sure you had to learn German, not only in the school setting, but also on the field. What was that school situation like for you guys?
Yeah. Okay. So it was definitely different, very unique. So when I was in high school, again, I signed it, I think it was my sophomore year. And so the agreement that my parents came to with the school was because I still wanted to graduate from my school, walk with my class. And so I would go.
I was trying to go to prom with that one girl you kept telling me about back in the day. No,
I tried to go to all the school dances. Yeah. I tried to be as involved as I could. So I went into first period. I think I had math class, or I had homeroom and math class. So I did that for, an hour and a half in the morning. And then it's funny, like Moby, you remember, I couldn't drive at first. So I had my mom pick me up from school. She'd drive me down to the stadium and did training, did that whole work. And then in the afternoon, I'd go back home and finish the rest of my courses online. And so I did that for the rest of my high school career. And then once I transitioned into taking classes at university, I went to Penn State World Campus. So I took classes there, and I actually had a little space in between when I graduated high school, because then that's after, or I guess while I was still in Germany, that's when I graduated from high school during the summer when I came home. So while I was in Germany, I had a little break before I started those college classes. And Russell had learned a bunch of the language before me. And Russ, you were never in a class, right?
No, I took the easiest German class so I could just spend more time on my other classes.
Yeah, and for
I was
me,
already
when I went
fluent at that
there,
point.
yeah, for the club to kind of help me acclimate, adjust, learn the language, I actually went to a German language school 5 days a week in Sinsheim. It was 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon.
I would go sometimes with you to that.
Yeah, so it was 4 hours a day, just strictly learning the German language, reading, writing, listening, etc.
Zach's German was very good for the amount of time he was there.
It was a huge help. I mean, still to this day, I'm trying to stay up with the language as much as I can. Whether I'm on Duolingo all the time. So,
yeah.
For
me,
German is still great too.
Yeah, it's been good because since I've been back with DC, I've been able to always have someone in the team to speak German to. So it's been pretty nice. Stieber, Busha, like Gressel now. There's been other guys too. But going back to the schooling part, I spent 2.5 years of my high school in Germany. And I was going to an international school. So luckily I didn't have to like learn subjects in German. I was able to speak English in all my classes and then just have a German class there specifically for that. But it was very tough. I look back and I honestly don't know how I did it, because it was 2.5 years of 5 days a week, like wake up at, we have Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursdays were like our double days.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd wake up 7 o'clock, go work out. I remember running through the forest, and then we'd run back down the hill. I'd go and shower, eat breakfast, and then hop on the train at 8, get to school a little bit later than, when it started, because it took me about 45-minute train ride to Heidelberg. Get there, obviously have school to 3 o'clock, then hop on the train back 4 o'clock, train, eat dinner, or train, shower, eat dinner, homework, go to bed. That was my day.
Shower, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You want to make sure to
somewhere in
include that
there.
shower.
Somewhere in there was a shower, I guess. But that was my day for 2.5 years. I look back and I'm like, geez, I started studying like 6 months out for like my finals just so I had enough time to be able to like do well on them. And funny story, my graduating class was I think 9 or 10 people. I think it was only 10 people. So I didn't really have a normal high school experience. Zach did not either, but mine was even worse. We didn't have any homecoming, no dance, nothing. It was, when I'd come home for summer break, I'd look forward to that because I could see all my buddies. But those were the type of sacrifices that I was willing to do. And honestly, when I was in the moment, I didn't even think twice about it. I was so focused on becoming a professional that that was totally okay with me having that. I could have done that schedule for 4 to 5 years more if I knew I was going to make it professional.
Oh, and I appreciate you guys both sharing that because it's a testament to why you guys are successful, not only in your careers, but off the field as well. And if we fast forward, now you guys at 22 years old, you guys both made pivotal decisions, or 22, 23, that time frame. Russell, you decided to come back to the States playing MLS, and Zach, you decided to, be done and go back to school full time, and then eventually lead you to private equity. So talk about those decisions, why you guys did that, and then we can move on to some of the things that you guys are doing off the field.
Yeah, I'll start. I just want to say, like, it's almost become like a lifestyle, like the way that the amount of work we had to put in to become professional athletes, it just for me, at least, it transitions into the other things I'm passionate about, which obviously we'll touch on. But, I get a lot out of my days because obviously, my priority is always soccer, and it always will be while I'm playing. But at the same time, a lot of people don't understand how much time we actually have when we're recovering, a lot of the downtime in the afternoons and stuff. So I don't really just like to sit there and waste my time. And, some of the things I'm passionate about are, a little bit business endeavors or, stuff like that's interests me. Finance. Zach and I have talked hours about stocks and all these different things. Right. And that's obviously the path that he's gone down. But I think that lifestyle and that grind has just kind of become, the way I live my life. Sometimes I have to almost catch myself and say, hey, like, slow down, because I just want to keep getting things done and just keep checking them off the list. But I don't know, Zach, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, from the day that I retired, I went back to school. It was the same type of mindset. And I think as professional athletes, all three of us, we know what it's like. And it's one thing to play a sport in high school, even in college, but another to kind of play at the professional level and understand what that's like. And so I think for me, that's helped tremendously in my transition as I entered the business and the finance world, not only in interviewing for firms like Goldman and for Brightstar, but just in terms of actually doing the work and kind of the motivation and the dedication to do what I do it well, and try to be the best. And so I took the kind of tunnel vision, I call it the myopia that I had of the world, which was focused on soccer. And I put 100% of that focus and effort into the next chapter of my life. And so that's the way I've always approached it. And, so far it's been a great transition, and hopefully that continues.
No, respect. I really appreciate you guys sharing because, a lot of the skills that we do learn from soccer easily translate to whether it's entrepreneurship, corporate business, whatever we do. And like we do have to understand, like, we're in a good place. You guys are only 26 years old, and to accomplish what you guys have accomplished, is no small feat. So like Russell said, sometimes we just got to sit back and sometimes slow down. But with that being said, let's dive into it a little bit. So Russell, you're like the real estate guru. You do some entrepreneurship stuff with Amazon, and Zach, I always say, Zach, when you start your fund, let me know. I'm gonna save up so I could, be one of the LPs or something. So talk about some of you guys' endeavors, and let's really dive into it.
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I started obviously again my career at Goldman Sachs, and I was doing investment banking, and really, I guess, kind of just to educate maybe some of the people who'd be listening who don't know as much about investment banking. Kind of at its core, to simplify it as much as possible, you're an advisor to companies strategically related to mergers, acquisitions, capital raising initiatives, whether that's debt, equity. And so I was able to get a tremendous experience at Goldman working with, some of the biggest companies around the world that you know of in the industrial space, and got a lot of experience with the M&A process and understanding kind of how that works, how businesses operate. You dig down and really understand at a granular level kind of how these businesses operate and what the lifeblood of those businesses is. So had a tremendous experience and really kind of prepared me for the move into private equity. And with Brightstar, we're a middle market focused private equity firm in New York, and kind of our core focus and expertise is with family owned, closely held, and entrepreneur led businesses. And it's when you look at the private equity space, you put your investor hat on, and it's in essence working with a pool of capital to deploy and acquire companies to help create value. And so we're working with businesses of all types, finding ways to partner with their management teams and find ways to grow the businesses to ultimately realize returns for everyone involved.
Just real quick on the difference between private equity, hedge fund, venture capital, because we see a lot of athletes getting into the venture capital space, but there's many different ways to invest. So give us like a quick 101 on why private equity is different from venture capital, different from hedge fund, different from all these different other alternative investments.
Yeah. So, maybe give like a bullet on each one. So again, you can think of investment banking as kind of more the advisory side, helping companies through the merger and acquisition process, helping companies raise capital via the equity and the debt markets for various reasons. And then when you go into kind of private equity or venture capital, growth equity, that's more of you putting kind of your investor hat on and actually deploying in the capital. So in private equity, you could think of it maybe as dealing with, more established companies, recurring cash flow type of companies, where venture capital obviously is much earlier stage, startup type companies that need seed capital to grow. And then when you look at kind of the hedge fund space, it's obviously the public market. So you're dealing with buying and selling stocks. And so those are kind of all the different aspects of those various avenues. A lot of similarities, a lot of differences. And I think it just shows you too, as well, for people who are interested in going into the world of finance, there's a lot of opportunity, and it's a clearly exciting space.
I appreciate that. And Russell, I mean, you're doing a lot of different things. I know we've talked offline quite a bit. So give us a rundown of like the wonderful things you're doing.
Yeah, I was just kind of in a trance there trying to listen to Zach, all that stuff he's saying, man.
I wrote some notes down.
I know, man. He can educate a lot of people. A lot of people should hit Zach up.
Definitely.
No, for me, I had a passion for, I'll just touch on the real estate one, because that's the one I'm really focused on growing. And the one I'm excited about for the future. But in April 2019, I went out and got my real estate license. It's a funny story. I was training 2 kids, trying to do side hustle, off season, making some money on the side, using my connections. And the person I ran into wasn't actually him and his wife. His wife was a team leader at a Keller Williams office, and he was one of the business coaches, right? Would coach all the agents to be more profitable. And we hit it off. I mean, obviously I had a great time training his son, but from the business side, that real estate piece always interested me. And it almost felt like it was meant to be that I was there training his kids. And obviously one thing led to another. And then I ended up, taking the course online, going and get my license. I never went and finished my college degree. So to me, this was something at least I could have as a backup plan, but also use during my career for my personal situation, which I did obviously this off season. In purchasing my home, I negotiated the deal myself and went through the whole real estate buying process, which was pretty cool.
You saved a little bit without using somebody.
Saved a little bit, yep, on that side, and then on top of that, my wife and I, we planned out the full renovation process, which has been an awesome experience that we've gone through together, which I'd like to then build and do on the investment side as well. But I this off season, and actually 12 months ago, I met kind of the guy his name's Jordan Stewart. He was
master connector.
Yeah. So it's all about networking, right? I think it's really important that us as athletes, we can use our platform now, to reach out, and whether it's companies, individuals, like just learning, educating yourself. It doesn't have to be, reaching out to make money, it's literally just to educate yourself and kind of see how things, if something interests you, reach out to someone you're following or you're inspired by. And that's kind of how I got into real estate, by creating a relationship and then it growing from there, not really knowing what it was going to be or what it would turn into, but it was great to have that relationship and build a friend. And then on top of that, it turns into, some type of business, right? A business that we're passionate about. Going back to 12 months ago, met Jordan Stewart, he was handling a couple of guys in the team, kind of our team realtor. And I obviously had my license and would work with a few guys in the team as well, but we ended up partnering together. We thought it made sense. So now I'm working with Next Move. Next Move is there's two situations. Next Move, there's locally in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So that's obviously Jordan and the Next Move team. Next Move Nation's Capital, which supports all the people within this DMV area. And then he also has the Next Move Network, which is top agents across the country that, help within the sports and entertainment industry. And I'm looking to help that obviously pivot into Major League Soccer. And then Jordan's local as well. So we can work together to build it here. And we're doing some special things with DC United, official real estate partner of DC United now. So there's lots going on that front, exciting things, but it all came down from one relationship, which was with his name's Eric Quadros, and it was literally training two kids. So it's cool. It's a cool story to see how one relationship can kind of be building blocks and create a pathway.
I like that you said that, because with that, it comes reputation. We have a unique opportunity, both on and off the field, to make these, relationships. But the reputation, you did a good job with, his kids, which led to, connecting with the parents and doing, leading to Jordan. And now you're, growing your business. With Zach, I know you mentioned your mentor, Steve Graham, who's a big time player in the Philadelphia area. It comes with, your reputation, not only on the field, but off the field. So when it comes to building these relationships and networking, your reputation matters, and your reputation can take you a long way.
And Moby, real quick, I would just add, because I don't think you could ever talk about it enough, and you could have a 5-hour podcast on it, but just in terms of building relationships, and I think Moby, you're one of the best at it as well, but Russell just talked a lot about it. I know at Brightstar, that's what we preach, is building relationships. And there's nothing more important. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry, what trade, building relationships is at the core of what life and business is all about. So, for all those athletes who are tuning in here, who read all the articles and the information that you put out, it's immensely important. And while you're playing too, while you have that brand, you have the recognition, it's so important to leverage that and build those relationships while you can.
Exactly. So with that, obviously, I mean, you guys, let's take it back, because you guys are making money at a young age, 16, 17, 18 years old. Obviously, your parents can help you out, but where did you guys learn your money management, your personal finance skills?
I would say, for me at 15, 16, whatever it was, playing professionally, making money, and I was living at home. And so I had virtually no expenses, and I had two wonderful parents who are also financially savvy, although they're not in the business or in the industry. And so the advice that I was given was save and invest. And so I didn't know much at the time, but I began to invest my money. And once you have money in the market, you have a vested interest. And so I just started to follow the stocks and the companies that I owned. And I was tuning into CNBC, Bloomberg, read the Wall Street Journal, Barron's, whatever I could get my hands on. And I just wanted to learn. And again, it's what we talked about earlier with just that focus, that drive. And it's what I had on the field, and it's what I had in every other passion of mine. And that passion was finance, was investing. And so I just learned as much as I could, as quickly as I could. And it kind of grew from there. And one step leads to another, and you kind of just learn how to go about managing your finances that way.
Yeah, I think for me, it was pretty similar. My dad always had a good handle on, financial decisions. My mom was really good at budgeting, and I think that translated to me. I'm really every month, even like weekly, I'm looking daily, weekly, I'm looking at my budget, just making sure, adjusting things, tracking my net worth, like doing all those things like that to me helped me grow. Now, did I make every single good investment decision? No, I didn't. Zach knows I was pretty risky in certain situations, but I also learned a ton from some of those situations, right? I don't think every single thing in the business world or investment you make is going to be a good one. And people need to understand that, but it's part of the process. And I think if you're pretty conservative and you make the right decisions, like you said, you stick to a budget, you save, you have the ability to then invest that money and grow it. And honestly, for me, the biggest thing is tracking it. If you see the monthly, tracker going up every single month, and it kind of is a motivation and, lets you know that you're doing something right. And, I think for me personally, I'd rather have that than go out and spend on stupid things, right? I'd rather make decisions and have more control and financial freedom, which is all the great things you talk about and preach, Moby, which is why I love this podcast. I love everything you're doing with A Frugal Athlete, because I think it translates very, very similar to my life.
No, respect. I appreciate you guys sharing that, and the compliment. So what advice would you have for like a young player in the game today? Yeah, I mean, you guys have lived it. You guys are living it. You guys just mentioned like what you guys did, but it's a new landscape now. There's a lot more information out there. I'm getting texts about NFTs and real estate and crypto, and this was not around when I was coming into the game. So what advice would you guys have for a young player in the game today?
Russ is the superstar now. He's still playing on the field. So
Yeah.
Russ, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely think you want to leverage your family if they have, obviously, like Zach's situation, like if that to help you make the right decisions. I think you look up to leaders in the team, mentors, guys who you kind of see like, hey, they can give me advice. I think you also be careful. I think obviously we're pro athletes, so there's a lot of people out there, may sound like a good idea, but it's not always going to be a great idea to invest. If you can be a little bit more conservative, especially the younger guys. I think the biggest thing, and you can talk about this all the time, but compounding your money, if you're able to start at a younger age, what it can amount to, and having a long-term plan. So I think those are super important things. We have an opportunity now with soccer growing in this country, especially the young kids coming into Major League Soccer. There's a ton of money. I don't know if you saw the CBA, but the minimum is going to be up a lot more in the future.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I'm about to change. I'm about to try to make a little comeback. Just change my age date or something.
Definitely. But, you just have to have a long-term plan and making smart financial decisions and educate. Like you said, Moby, there's so much information online now. You have to be careful with that. But there's still a ton of good information out there that you can learn from. And I think it's your job as an athlete. You're making money and you have this privilege to make money at a young age. You obviously worked hard to get where you're at, but it's a gift, right? And you have to understand, what to do with that. You don't want to lose it and be in a bad spot 5 years from now.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I would give similar advice. I think, for one, time's on your side. And so for all those young athletes now, everyone's, especially in the US, I think, turning professional younger and younger. And so it becomes that much more important to take advantage of the extra years and the opportunity you have where you're making money. And so, as Russell said, there's nothing more powerful than compounding interest. And also while you're younger, you have an ability to take on a bit more risk than you otherwise would when you're 30, 40, 50 with each year that goes by. That time goes away. So I think investing early, taking advantage of compounding your money, I think having an ability to take a bit more risk when you're younger. But I think most importantly too, you just need to make sure you're mindful of kind of what you're spending, how much you're earning. And Russell talked about putting together a budget, which is very important. But then I think just as important, if not more so, is surrounding yourself with the right people. And I know when I was at the Union, Moby, both of us, I think a guy who was very helpful, of course, was Brian Carroll. And there's guys like Will Hesmer who played in the league, and a lot of these guys who still help a lot of the current athletes now. So it's important to go to those who are more senior than you, who have experience, surround yourself with a good and trusted group of people. And then just, again, to try to learn as much as you can. As Russell pointed out, there's a lot of time that all of us have as professional athletes outside of the game. And so as opposed to maybe just, if you're sitting at home and you're watching TV, that's great, but maybe take some time as well to learn, to educate yourself. And I think Moby, you're the perfect poster guy for that, with everything you've done outside of playing. So that's the advice I would give. And then look, the only other thing I would say, and I think this is really for those who are younger, who haven't even turned professional yet, is you have to have a backup plan. And I know no one wants to hear that, but it was something that my parents always told me about. And I know same with Russell, but you may be the greatest player on planet Earth, and either there could be an unlucky situation, you could get injured, whatever it may be, your career may just not pan out the way you thought it would. And in that case, it's good to be able to say, hey, I have a degree, or I'm educated, or I know what I want to do next. And so I think it's always important to keep that in mind.
Definitely.
No, you guys are spitting facts, and I appreciate you guys coming on. So I know you guys' time is limited, but before I let you go, you guys both touched on it, time. Russell, you spent your downtime, your free time to get your real estate license, and now you've built a business that you work synonymous with your career. Zach, when we keep in touch, I remember you going to business school. Next thing you know, you're at Goldman Sachs. Next thing you know, you're at Brightstar, and that was only within 2-3 year period. So we have all this time, but we don't think of it, as it goes on. I remember my rookie year, now 10 plus years in the game. So we have this time, but it goes by quicker than we think. So we got to take advantage of it and talk about, other ways people can take advantage of their time and resources, that you use. Zach, you mentioned Barron's and Wall Street and CNBC. Russell, I know you got a couple in your Rolodex as well. So just touch on it, and then, I'll let you guys go.
Yeah, for me, and this is actually, I think, something I even learned more so, and the importance of it during COVID. Obviously, we didn't have a season. I kind of was having to find the motivation to go train on my own and making sure I'm staying committed without a return date, right? Like we had the first 2 games of the year, March of last year, and then it stopped. We didn't know when we were going to come back. So when I talk about time, I think of time blocking, and that for me has been the biggest, I'll say, learning experience of 2020. And just, I did it before, but I didn't do it to the extent I'm doing now, planning out my week, planning out every single day, marking down my calendar, what I'm doing this part of the day. Obviously I have now during the season, I have, from 8 a.m. to 1 o'clock is definitely booked because that's my soccer. But what are the things I'm fitting in after the day, the morning part, to have the most success and most impact on my day. And I think that's been, for me, time blocking is key. So if anybody doesn't feel like they're achieving as much as they want, or they want to be achieving more within their business, within their education, within their profession, whatever it is, you have to add that piece into your plan.
Oh, that's a big one. That's something I've added over the years, and it's been a game changer. Brandon Marshall, fellow football player, said it best: if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. And it could be like an hour a day. Like, it doesn't have to be, 5 hours a day, like 15 minutes. We use compound interest for money. We can use it for, working as well. So just wanted to point that out, and thank you, Russell. All right, Zach, what you got?
I think I would echo the same things on the finance side. It's obviously using time to your benefit in terms of compounding your money and your investments. And then outside of that, I think it's, as a professional athlete, as a collegiate athlete, when you're outside of the classroom, when you're outside of training and games, it's maximizing the time you have. Obviously, of course, we all want to live our lives, and you want to take time for yourself to be with your family, your friends. But it's also trying to take time to learn, to educate yourself, to find different passions that can supplement kind of what you're doing on the field or in your business. So I think it's immensely important. Time is kind of the greatest asset that we all have, and it goes by very, very quickly, unfortunately. So it's trying to maximize that from all aspects of your life.
That's what it's all about. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Before I let you leave, I lied. One last question. One book recommendation that you guys would recommend?
I think normally I could give a finance book, but I'm going to say Shoe Dog. Story of Phil Knight and Nike. Unbelievable read.
Okay.
I'll give you a real estate Gary Keller book, The One Thing.
Okay. I like that. Both
Yeah.
books are amazing. I've read both of them. So I appreciate you guys sharing.
I'm
And,
not a big reader either, but I did read The One Thing, and I think that is exactly what I'm talking about. Time blocking. In there, it's a huge importance. So there's a lot more other tips in there too.
Yeah, so that's it for the podcast today. I'd like to thank Zach and Russell for coming on. A lot of gems. We got to learn about their story, got to learn about what they're doing, not only on the field, off the field. Zach, not many people have a 6-year career and still have time to be where they're at and before 30. So that's amazing. And then Russell, he's killing it. He's being humble today, but he's doing a lot of great things, both on and off the field. So, like we do now, we do our little quick takeaways. Time, take advantage of your time, not only from a compound interest standpoint, but, with what you do off the field. Obviously budgeting and, just investing in the resources that you have. So that's really important as well. And then last but not least, I think it's really important is, and how can I say it in a good way? Relationships, relationships can take you far, and it may not be like a finance tip, but at the end of the day it is, because you are who you surround yourself with. And as an athlete, you're able to get in a lot of doors, but your reputation matters. So Zach and Russell are both excellent athletes or business people that have done that and will continue to do that. So make sure you check them out. We're going to have their show notes in the description. And once again, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mubs.